All right, you're back here on the Gill Connections podcast. This is kind of it's not a two-parter. It's almost like a series, honestly. Last week, we had the assistant director of track and field at the IMG Academy on. We learned all about his journey. He's a coach's kid. That was amazing. We learned about the Under Armour National Championships coming up here in a couple of weeks. Well, he's a coach's kid, so I figured, well, let's go get the dad. Let's go figure out that coach. So that's what we're going to do. This is the continuation of that. We're going to get his dad here. Help me welcome from the IMG Academy, the dad of last week's guest. I think that's the first time. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Mr. Bill Lawson. Law, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be on with you guys today.
Absolutely, man. You know, what I did forget to ask you during our little pre-interview, what is your official title there? Your son has assistant director of track and field. What are you there?
I am the overall coach for the program.
Got it.
And I always like to mention and note he is not my boss. Let's just get that out there.
I was going to ask.
He's on a different line under
That's
the
right.
director.
That's
But
right.
no, he is as you said, the assistant director, and I'm the overall head coach, more in charge of national development for all events within our program.
Got it. Now, Law, I've known you for a long time now, and we're going to
Yep.
get into your impact on my life, honestly. I'm sure that
Well,
story
thank
will
you.
come up. But I learned some things about you,
Uh-oh.
TJ, last week. No, really some impressive things, and we'll get into that as we get to that part of your story. But no, there were a lot of Law, I've always had a lot of respect for you as a coach. You know, when I was a coach and you were a coach, I always had a lot of respect for you as a coach and all that. But I can't imagine how hard it is to have your son, who is also not only a guy who's in your sport, a kid that's in your sport, but at a high level, and you've coached at a high level, how that intercedes. And you were, I don't want to say hands off, but you were a much better parent than I think I could have been in regards to how you let him find his own path, and you allowed him to go see other visits for. And I was like, dude, you were going to Kent. What do you mean you visited other schools? And he's like, he said, I'm kind of getting ahead here a little bit. When Kent was recruiting him, the assistant coach came in and you went like to the movies. Like you even were like, yeah, you need to talk to my son. My son needs to talk to you. I can't be that involved. It blew me away, Bill. That was pretty impressive.
Well, obviously, I didn't want to tilt the scales. I mean, he had a lot of great opportunities to go to a number of universities. As you said, a pretty highly talented young man coming out of high school. I said for his mom, my wife Jody, she stayed home, and I actually went up to the office and made some recruiting calls just in case he decided to go to one of the other schools.
Recruit his backup if he don't make it, right? That's funny. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I just was very impressed, and like I said, we'll get into that. So, but it's not the TJ show. He had his episode
Yeah.
last week, man. Let's stick to you here, Law. Same question I ask everybody, and I actually got a little bit of an insight to this recently. We were at the Penn Relays. Recordtan had a coaches speaker series, and anytime a coach is involved, I like to be involved. So I actually recorded those, and we have those playing throughout this month here on the podcast as well. But you shared a little insight into how track started for you. How in the world did track and field start for you?
Well, I always was like, unlike, young kids today, we played outside all day long. Grew up in small farming community, Carthage, Illinois, and, did a lot of work on the farm. And I used to, like using, it was an old cane pole. It was in the back of my dad's truck. And, when I was waiting to do whatever we had to do next, started by jumping over fences with that. It's about a 7 foot long pole where you kind of, poke them to get through the gates. And, that's how I kind of started jumping over objects. And then one day I look and I say, my goodness, 1968 Olympics is on TV. Wow. And then they showed something, I think it was for the first time ever, slow motion of people competing. I think that was the first year they had slow motion technology. And it's actually, I think the first time the Olympics were in color, as opposed to some of the prior Olympics, I believe. At least I've embellished that story, but I
Right.
think
It's the way I remember it, right?
I think that's true. And I started watching that, and I was just mesmerized by these athletes. And I think of the big performance like Bob Beeman, to Beemanize the Beeman-esque performance, going from the 27-11 guy to 29-2 and a quarter on his first jump, and seeing Dick Fosbury go over the high jump bar a completely different way. And I thought I could do that in the backyard and jump over and land on the ground. I found out that, I needed something to land
Did
on.
you try that for real?
Oh, yeah, I
Oh,
tried that
Law.
too. And so Then I heard them talking about, the 1500 meters and how it's a metric mile and the 4 minute mile. Roger Bannister in 1957, which was only 11 years prior to that.
Right.
And, we didn't have the social media and the instant knowledge of results.
Hmm.
You had to wait and read something or hear something about it. You just wouldn't see it right away.
Yeah.
And so they talked about the 4 minute mile. So after I'd watched those, as you know, the 68 Olympics were actually in the fall. They're more like in October because that's the summertime is the wet time of the year in Mexico and
Right.
Mexico City. So it was much later in the year. So people were really fit and ready to go. And they talked about a 4 minute mile. So I got the idea, let's go out and measure how far it is around my grandmother's house where I live. And I had a yardstick. And I took that yardstick one after another. It might have got a little out of,
Wait, like literally
comfort around a 1 foot yardstick. Oh, excuse me, a three foot yardstick, and
holy.
all the way around the house. Did a little math. My math is fuzzy. I estimated times I had to run around that house in order to go. I got about 7 or 8 times around. One, I was gassed. Two, my grandmother was yelling at me for running through the flower bed, and so that ended badly. But it really kind of it really got me excited about track. It really did. And I just thought they talked about track and field athletes and decathlon in particular being the greatest athletes in the world. And that sounded good to me. And so that's really kind of what started my journey
Hmm.
in loving track and field, at age about, 11 or 12 years old.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then it's just kind of, populated since that.
I'm always interested with our more experienced coaches, Bill, i.e., old, and because I love how you pointed that out about the time period you're at. Because today, right, if someone were to go run a 3 minute mile, we would know instantly from social media. Like we would all know, we'd be talking about it right now, right? 11 years before that 68 Olympics, and we're just like when we're recording this, the anniversary was just yesterday, I think.
Yes,
Um, he runs the sub 4 minute mile. It didn't even it takes time for that to spread back to America and then through
correct.
rural Illinois and all that stuff. So it's amazing to me how if someone is a teenager today, how can they get involved in track and field or learn about track and field? Well, again, go on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, YouTube. You can see a million things. You had to be like your availability to find track and field almost was every 4 years. It was when the Olympics were on TV and things like that. Now you didn't have as many distractions, and what I mean by that, now you had a lot of distractions called work back then, but you didn't have summer clubs and all that kind of
Correct.
stuff, and you didn't have all the different thousands of sports that we have now, padel, pickleball. There's so many things at you. How did you do other sports, and how did you like why did track hold you? You were an athletic guy. How come you didn't go become a baseball player or something? Why did track hold you?
Well, that broke my dad's heart when I didn't want to do baseball.
Uh,
But I did play baseball. If I could get anything across to all your listeners that have children and maybe young people out there, I think it's imperative to do multiple sports.
mm,
Today, we are too focused on one thing for too long. You talk about my longevity and as a track athlete and from even junior high all the way through. I've been doing this for longer, almost 60 years,
right.
58 years as an athlete and a coach. And I've seen too many young people focus in, whether it be a soccer or another sport, and that's all they do.
Right.
But especially in track and field, and I've seen so many great athletes be done
Hmm.
almost before they get to college or very early in college, the university level, because it's been so intense and there's been no other outlets.
Hmm.
And so I think, it's really important for kids to explore multiple sports, multiple events. We have an award here. We'll have a banquet in a couple weeks here, or less than a couple weeks. And one of our awards we give out is open mind, having the open mind to try different things, do different things. I can't even tell you the countless times we've had somebody come in here and they're either a sprinter or jumping. Next thing you know, they're a national champion in the hammer throw.
Hmm.
They just were, you got to find that right event or that right sport and see how much you really love it. I think at the end of the day, when we did sports, people 20, 30, 40, in my case, 50 years ago, you had to have a true love for it. And I think in fairness to the young people and parents and coaches out there, There were no other avenue. You either went outside and played,
Right.
or maybe if you're lucky to have one TV in the house, black and white, of course, and come in and you might do that. But
Right.
uh, I think it was special when you got the news. You found out about the dual meet between the United States and the Soviet Union. Then
Yeah.
it was
Big
all,
deal. Yeah.
I love that on Wide World of Sports, and it's just something that just kind of tickled me a little bit, as opposed to you're depending on the quarterback to throw you the football on time, as opposed to you when they call up, it's a third attempt and you're behind and you got to go. There's something special about that individual.
Right.
And then also track still has that teammate aspect in relays and scoring points to try to win a team title or team trophy. So I think it's the best of both worlds. But yeah,
Yeah.
do other sports, guys.
Yeah.
Encourage your kids and athletes to do other sports.
And I know other sports have certainly had technology throughout the years. Of course, I might be more privy to the track and field ones. You mentioned a bamboo vaulting pole. Was it steel and then bamboo and then we went
No,
to
I think
fiberglass?
I think like Cornelius Warmerdam, one of the first guys to jump really high. Was that back in the 40s or 50s? I can't recall. He was on a cane pole, big cane pole. Then it went to aluminum, Swedish steel, aluminum,
Oh wow.
into obviously the fiberglass, and then it's
Yeah.
gone stages. We kind of pre-talked about that. I literally would go up. We had it was called Twaddle's Furniture in Carthage, Illinois, and me and my buddy would go up on a bicycle, wait for him to unload carpet, and then on that carpet they rolled up the carpet, new from the factory, cane poles, all different sizes.
Oh
Some of
really?
them were as thick as, oh my gosh, almost not quite as thick as the cup of a golf cup, where your ball goes into the
Yeah,
golf
yeah,
cup.
yeah, yeah.
Not quite that thick, but a little bit less. And then it would thin out towards the top. And you could get them 8 foot, 10 foot, 12, 14 foot.
That's what they rolled carpet on?
Yes,
Oh,
yes. And
that's
we
interesting.
on a delivery date, we would go up and wait for that and sitting around, and finally they'd leave and they'd have them in the dump back behind the place, and we'd take what we needed.
I thought, my knowing of carpet is like, oh, it's a cardboard. And I was like, you did not jump on cardboard. Like, what are you
No,
talking?
no, it
How
was
was
actually
bamboo?
bamboo cane, full cane. And you could get
That's so
all kinds of stuff.
interesting.
We take two of them and stick them in the ground and try to drive little finish nails, and start at about 4 feet, working up to 5, 6, 7, 8 feet, up
Wow.
really jumping high.
That's amazing. I didn't
Yeah.
know you mentioned growing up in Carthage. I for some reason thought you grew up in Iowa. That's kind of where,
Yeah,
my
that's where
first origin. But
I
you
went
grew
to
up here.
undergrad. I went to undergrad there. I grew up, like I said, when I kind of progressed, and I think people saw that I could, be a pretty good, decent pole vaulter. We needed a real pole, and I mentioned it to you earlier. We're only about 2 hours, maybe an hour and
Yeah.
50 minutes from Champaign, Illinois, and that was my first personal interaction. We actually drove to Champaign and got a 12-foot aluminum pole from
Dude.
Gill. And I think it was I think it was 69, because, the Olympics had happened.
Hmm.
And I used that, and I maxed it out. So, I mean, I want to say I jumped close to 10 feet on a straight pole,
Yeah, yeah.
coming out. And because that's what we used to have on, at recess, that the coach would put out hurdles, put out the pole vaulting pole. We landed in sawdust.
Huh.
And the teachers would always yell at us for coming inside, being all sweaty, and the sawdust sticking to us, and then we brush it off on the floor. So we progressed. Eighth grade year, going to go into ninth grade. We came back to Gill. Actually, I think we actually had that one shipped to our house.
Wow.
And I think it was a 12-foot. I know it was a 12-foot pole, red. I think those were called the Big Red, I
That
believe.
sounds right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was that era. And I used that all the way into my sophomore year, when it just wasn't enough anymore. So
Wow.
we started progressing and moving up to
That's uh,
that.
you know, Law, I know you through Fred Dixon, my mentor, who
Oh,
a
he's a
good friend
great
of
guy.
yours.
Love Fred.
And and I think I've been around, this is my 20th year. So I'm like, oh, I've been around Gill, and I was a Gill customer when I coached and all that kind of stuff. Dude, you might have known Harry Gill personally.
I don't know if I did, but that I know that was definitely in the because my
That's
sister,
awesome.
I think my sister took me to my first. I want to say they call it the AAU, like youth track meet in Peoria, Illinois,
Hmm.
and I showed up with that aluminum pole, but it was I believe it was a fiberglass box. It could have been a steel box, but they weren't going to let me plant that pole into the box
Oh,
there.
sure.
So I ended up borrowing somebody else's pole. I
Yeah.
think I jumped very high, maybe 9 feet or something like that.
I know we used to do a lot of fiberglass, and vaulting boxes was one of those, which when you
Yeah,
think about the event, it's like, that doesn't seem all that
yeah.
smart, but yeah, that makes sense. So tell me about, I'm interested to learn, what was the status of high school track and field when you were in high school? Because you know what it is today. Like we know, there's meets, and some states have indoor season and outdoor season. There's a lot of dedicated coaches. That's all they do is they coach track and field plus teach, of course. What was it like when you were in high school for track and field?
Well, I was very lucky. I went to, like I said, Carthage High School, Carthage, Illinois. We had an amazing group of coaches from our football, basketball, track and field, and baseball coaches. They were all good guys. And I looked up to them, I admired them, and maybe not all of them the most knowledgeable in pole vaulting, but they were just good mentors. And they were, and the entire town was very supportive of athletics where we came from our football, from our basketball. And then, of course, track and field was more of an enigma where people didn't understand it as well, but they appreciated athleticism. I remember, well, fast forward to my senior year, when I was triple jumping, 47 feet, pole vaulting, trying to clear that 15-foot bar
Wow.
in high school, and in the end went on to be a state champion in Illinois, which was great. And the year before, I think it'd been in Champaign my first 2 years there. Then my last year had switched over to Eastern Illinois.
Mhm.
There at the home of the Blue Panthers.
Yeah, that's it.
So yeah, I think it's really evolved a lot. But there was, kind of back to our initial conversation. You waited for that news article to come out, and we'd have that weekly county paper, and I would see what my rivals were doing from some of my, Brown County and Galesburg
Yeah.
and Rushville, Illinois, where some of the other bowlers and jumpers were from. And then you see how you're ranked weekly in what they call the tri-state area, because we live close to the Mississippi River, Illinois and Missouri and Iowa, the
Hmm.
tri-state area. And so you would get that regional ranking and see where you were at. So
Hmm.
it was, I think it was a very supportive and very track was kind of a niche thing at that point, but people liked it. They liked to come. I remember my dad's car dealer, the guy that ran our gas station. They would come out and watch me jump.
Wow. That's awesome. I didn't know you were 47-foot triple jumper in high school. That's awesome. Uh, what is I'm not sure the time frame where Jan Johnson, because he was in Bloom, Illinois. Is he
So,
older
so,
than
Jen,
you, or
so
is
the
that around?
Johnson, yeah, the Johnson boys. So my first state championship, I remember like it was yesterday, 1973, sophomore in high school. Craig Virgin sets the national record, ran
Yeah.
8:42 in the
Hmm.
2 mile and full 2 mile. And I was coming from a district meet or a regional meet, sectional meet. I can't remember if we called them regionals or sectionals then. And somebody running sub 10 was rolling.
Big
And
deal,
I
right?
remember Jan Johnson. He was a few years older than me, but his brother Tim Johnson,
Okay.
and they had another freshman kid. They rolled into the state championship with two pole vaulting bags full of poles. I roll in with my one 14-foot pole wrapped in trash bags because it rained and was strapped to the side of the car. It rained on the way up. I I quickly realized I was outgunned.
Yeah, yeah,
And those guys they were good.
yeah,
Tim was
yeah.
good. And of course, Jan Johnson, I didn't really see, he was about
Mm.
4 years older than me, but
Okay, yeah, that's what I couldn't
Tim
figure
was
out.
maybe 2 years older than me. But then they had a
Yeah.
freshman kid. I can't believe I'm going to remember this. I think his name was McCrandle.
Hmm.
And he had jumped like, I couldn't believe it was a ninth grader jumping like 14 feet. I thought
Yeah.
that was amazing. I believe I only jumped 12.6 or 12.9 or 13
Hmm.
feet that meet. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's amazing the pole vault history in the state of Illinois. I mean, it's
Oh my gosh.
it's it's pretty solid. It's quite amazing. So, what does a kid in Carthage, working with his family and doing track and things like that? What do you? How did you think about college? What were you thinking about majoring in? What do you think you were going to become as an adult?
I didn't know because my mother and grandmother ran a restaurant. It was on the town square of Carthage. It's called the South Side Cafe because it was on the south side. It was all home cooking. My grandmother get up every morning at 4 a.m., go and make the pies and make the dough.
Wow.
My mom, I got up at 4:30 every morning, went to the farm with my dad. And we lived in the town. We didn't live on the farm. So it was about an 18 to 22 minute drive, depending. And I would sleep all the way till I'd hit a certain bump in the road. It's called Red Bridge. That'd wake me up and I knew it was time to go. And we'd be down there about an hour and 20 minutes, do an hour and a half, doing the chores, drive back, go straight to the restaurant, clean up in the bathroom, get my breakfast, and head off to school.
Dude.
Do school all day. And then my uncle, who worked at the local electrical company, would pick me up at about 4 o'clock and we go do it all again. Second set of chores down on the farm, get back around 7 o'clock, 7:30, eat dinner at the restaurant,
Hmm.
do any homework if I could stay awake,
Yeah, right.
which wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
And I did that all the way until basically we sold the farm when I was a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
And then that's kind of when my athletics took off when I didn't have all those other,
Hmm.
but I loved it. I wouldn't trade it for
Right.
anything because it gave me my work ethic that I have today.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm willing to work all day long. My good friend, who I said I probably mentioned, Coach Bucknam, who just retired from Arkansas, sometimes we just rather work stupid than smart. That's all we're capable. That's all we're capable of.
We all have to go with our strong suits. So how does a farm kid in Illinois think about college? Like, I mean,
Well,
was that actually like on the table or
I,
was it
I have to
expected?
give my sister, no, not,
Hmm.
if I was going to go to college, we didn't have the money. We didn't have
Hmm.
any money to do that kind of stuff. But my sister had gone to Drake University 7 years ahead of me. And she went there for 3 years. She's a very good student. Um, she was my mom and dad's biological child. I was adopted.
Hmm.
I think firmly to work on the farm was the number one thing. At
He
age,
looks strong. I'll take him.
age 3, we'll give you a year to develop. And she went to Drake University, and I think it's something that really aided her. She came home one summer after her junior year, and I know she did really well in school. She got a great summer job at this crop hail insurance adjustment company, which is big in Illinois because of all the farmland.
Mhm.
And she got promoted before the end of the summer. She ended up not going back to school and not finishing.
Oh,
And my parents were supportive of that. Neither of my parents had gone to college, and actually, my dad didn't even graduate from high school, but my mom had, and so they were supportive of my sister going and making money. My dad's thought process for me to get through high school, get done with that nonsense in his mind,
right.
and start, driving the truck to, haul the livestock to market, working on the farm. And he was perfectly, and I was okay. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what I thought I was going to do. And then my sport started taking off. I started getting letters, from at first local colleges, then more. And I remember getting called into the fall to my guidance counselor's office. Maybe I shouldn't say his name. Well, I know he's not around anymore, but he had said, "So William," and I always know it's serious, and they call you William, or you're in trouble when they call you Billy instead of Bill. And my guidance counselor said, he says, "What are you going to do next fall?" I said, "Well, I kind of thought I might go to college and try to run track and field." He goes, "No, college is not for you. You should probably go to work for your dad
Your
or."
guidance
My
counselor.
guidance counselor said, "College is not for you. Maybe go into the military."
Oh
Well,
my goodness.
he had me pegged. I mean, I'm sitting at the 50th percentile of my class, okay? And I was trying. And anyway, I came home and I told my mom, who's a very, very kind, devout woman, devout Christian woman, and she goes, "Well, you follow your heart. You do what you want, what you want to do." Well, then, from that point going forward, I'd had a knee surgery that summer, so I wasn't able to play football. That was
Oh,
my big
wow.
dream. I wasn't able to, all the cutting for basketball starting, I couldn't do that. So, crazy me, I went out for wrestling
Hmm.
and found out I was pretty good at it. So I did that. But then track and field just exploded. lo and behold, I lost my track coach. Not lost him. He just quit doing track. And
Okay,
then,
I was concerned.
oh, I'm sorry. He's still around and he's like 97.
No
Yeah,
shot. Holy
yeah, yeah.
cow.
And I see him every time I do go back home that way.
That's
And
awesome.
then I got a new track coach, a young guy, had just graduated from the University of Northern Iowa. His name was Steve High. He was from Keokuk, Iowa, just across the river from us. He came back and he was our new track coach. And he was as arrogant as I was, and we were a good mix. And he taught me things I had no idea on how to do with the triple jump. That's where I went from basically 41 feet to 46, 9.5, pretty quick in the triple jump. And my vault exploded, and breaking records and winning, winning every meet. And I thought, you know what, I could get a scholarship in track. And my sister told me that I needed to get away from the hometown. Don't go to the local school like Western Illinois, was only 20 miles away,
Right.
or some local school. You'll end up back in town like everybody else. And so she pushed me to go away. And when I met this guy, Steve High, he and I clicked. He took me up, him and his wife, Ann, took me on a visit themselves. They drove me because my folks were working,
Right.
drove me up to the University of Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls, Iowa. And I ended up signing with those guys the next spring to go to Northern Iowa. And that's where I went. I wouldn't trade it for anything. All my relationships, that's how Bucky and I got together for our,
Yeah.
he came in as a graduate assistant in '79 as my fifth year, senior year.
Okay.
And it's been history since then. So that's how I got, and I did get a scholarship. I had to, otherwise I was
Hmm.
for every penny of myself.
I'm amazed at things that we think are happenstance or luck or whatever. I mean, it just, it all depends on where you are in your faith. But think about if the coach hadn't left and this new coach comes in. You
Right.
don't know about Northern Iowa. You don't know. That's just amazing to
I would
me.
have been, I had a nice, all my scholarship offers were very lucrative and nice. And I would have gone to Western Illinois University, which
Yeah.
would have been fine
Right, right,
because
right.
they were really good.
Hmm.
They were in Division II at that time and always working towards a national title. And there were some unbelievable performances at Western Illinois. And there was 25
Right,
miles, half
right.
an hour, could easily come home on a weekend. But
Wow.
a lot of those folks end up staying in Carthage.
Hmm,
There's
hmm.
nothing wrong with that. I half
Right,
our class stayed there, and
right.
I had my 50th year class reunion
Yeah.
last year, and I saw those people, and they're great people,
Hmm,
and
hmm.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Right, 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 right. That's amazing to me. So what do you go to Northern Iowa? What does again this farm kid, what do you go to study? Like what do you think adult build? I
Okay,
assume you don't think you're going to
so
become a coach at this point.
I could pretty much build anything. I worked on the farm, and I had an industrial arts class. And don't think it was the dumb kids because I was actually in there with the valedictorian too. But he went on to get an engineering degree. I did. So I thought, but I thought, you know what? I really like to make things, build things.
Hmm.
I want to be an architect.
Yeah, okay.
So in Northern Iowa, University of Northern Iowa had a good architectural program. And my grades were just good enough to get into school.
Hmm.
Okay. And they weren't, like I said, I was working at the farm, twice a day.
Hmm.
And my upbringing was like shake somebody's hand, look them in the eye, mean what you say, and say what you mean,
Hmm. Yep.
as opposed to having the pressure to have straight A's. My sister did that. So if we met in the middle, we had B's.
Perfect.
Okay. We got to have somebody bring the curve
All
down.
right.
And so I just, you know, I kind of lost what I was talking about there for a second.
Yeah, yeah. You're talking about you started out as architect major because
Oh
you
yeah, yeah.
like
Sorry.
things. Mhm.
And I went up there and I signed up for classes. And you know how they sign you up for classes yourself. I mean, not they kind of put you in some classes initially and then put it around your major. Well, the class
Mhm.
around the major to be an architect, I I shouldn't have been. I was in school for about a week, and I can't do this. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, everybody back, I'm going to fail. And and there happened to be another guy in the administration building, and if any young people listen to this, they're going to laugh, but the older guys know. When we would go sign up for a class, you don't do it online. You go physically there. You have to go into a room, you pull a card, that would manually be put into a computer that's as big as a house.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
in
Yeah.
your class schedule. It was insane. And this line would be, out the door, 150 feet long, people and hoping that the classes aren't gone by the time they get there.
Yeah, right.
And I happened to see this guy standing in line. I recognized him. He was on a visit at Northern, and he had gone to the University of Iowa and was transferred. He's a year ahead of me, was transferring from the University of Iowa to Northern Iowa. And I go, and it was like after a week of school, and I think he transferred late.
Hmm.
And I said, "Hey, Tom, right? Tom Akers." Well, Tom Akers, been a good friend of mine. He was,
Shut up.
yeah, Eastern Illinois. You know who I'm talking
Of
about.
course.
And
Yes.
I called him Akes, Tom Akers, and I said, "Hey, yeah, you're in Northern Iowa. Yeah, yeah, I remember you." And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm getting my classes." And I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm gonna be a teacher. I'm gonna teach and get a degree in, either health or physical education or whatever." I said, "Let me see your class list." I looked at it. I slipped over right over to his line. I said, "That's what I'm doing."
This looks a little bit
And
more my
that's
style.
exactly how it started.
Dude, that's amazing. I mean, first of all, Northern Iowa is a little bit of the coach's cradle for track and field. I knew
It's
that.
amazing. I'm
But
so proud of everybody
Tom
that's done.
Akers as well.
Yeah,
Tom was the first like college coach I met when I coached high school in Chicago. Was one of the first guys that recruited one of my kids, a hurdler, and so I've always had a soft spot for Tom Akers. I mean, he was amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
and he went on to
again,
be the head coach at first assistant, then head coach at Eastern
yeah,
Illinois.
for a
When I was
long
at
time.
Northern Iowa,
Yeah, that's
we were
right.
going head to head. The
Yeah,
White
that's
Panthers
right.
beat the Blue Panthers.
That's right. He again, this is what another story about what seems like happenstance, luck, that this guy, he transfers it. He didn't have to transfer in. There's one thing that just, how's that
Yeah.
happen? And then he says, "Well, here's my plan." And you're like, I kind of like that. I'm gonna go to this line over here. That's just amazing to me. It's
He
really
and I were talking
fascinating.
about that like maybe 3 or 4. He goes, "I don't remember any of that." I go, "Trust me." I go, "Hey, Tom, I'm not even sure how much is true, but it sounds good."
You're like, I remember because that
But
changed my
I
life.
do.
Wow. So you start then on the path of like, I'm gonna become a teacher and coach.
Well, here's the thing. Those 4 guys that I mentioned, head coaches at Carthage, Illinois, Coach Ed Test, Coach Dick Beery, who else? I forget. Chet Hanks was the baseball coach, and one other guy, I forget it. Oh, Joey Dione. He was the assistant football coach. Joey Dione's still around. Ed Test is still around, and I'm not sure about everybody else. And I remember riding my bicycle about that same era we're talking about after 68 Olympics. It's probably more like 1970 now. And I'm driving around riding my bicycle around the lake, and I see these guys standing on the 7th tee at the Carthage Municipal Golf Course, and you can't help but ride up by. They go, "Billy Lawson, you're going to be at football camp in a couple weeks." "Yes, sir, Coach Test." And I go, "What are you guys doing?" He goes, "Well, we're playing some golf, and then later we're going to paint some houses. And then we teach you guys and coach you guys all year long." I admired them. They were pillars in the community. And guess what? I went on to be a school teacher and a coach, and I had a painting business for over 20 years. While I would do that stuff in the summertime as well.
Dude,
So I did exactly what they did.
if you're listening and you're a coach, because that's the majority of you guys that are listening right now, don't you ever doubt the influence, the positive influence impact that you make on young people. That's what a testament to that. That's amazing. Young people are watching you guys, so act accordingly. That's awesome. So you go through and get a degree, an education degree in your 5th year, and I know how good friends you guys are. That's when you meet your lifelong BFF. You meet Bucky.
Yeah. So Buck comes in the fall of 1979, my 5th year. I'm kind of the guy.
Where did he do? Where did he do undergrad at?
He was at Norwich Military Academy.
Oh,
According to him, his dad decided he needs some straightening up. And then now Buck was a year ahead of me in school. He had graduated in 74 and I graduated in 75. Plus I had a red shirt year. He went straight through military academy. That's the difference right there.
right, right.
He actually went to Northern Michigan, and he
Oh,
got
wow.
after he graduated from Norwich Military Academy. He went to Northern Michigan and he was a GA there. And he met a guy that was son of a guy. This guy that he met, Dodson, Dick Dodson, was a track coach in Waterloo, Iowa. And he said, "Hey, you ought to come down to Northern Iowa. They got a graduate assistantship. I'll put in a word for you."
Wow.
Lynn King, who was my track and field coach,
Mm-hmm.
brought Chris Buckman down. I met him. It's a funny story. Buck and I laugh at it all the time. He's from Boston, Massachusetts,
Mm-hmm.
Beverly, Mass. Got the accent. And we think, hey, he's from Boston. Let's take him out for some fish. So we go to Long John Silver's. But to this day, we laugh.
Oh
We
my
went to Long
gosh.
John Silver's, and I met the guy. I liked him right away.
I was gonna say,
Uh,
did you guys hit it off right off the bat?
right away.
Yeah.
My worst event, the decathlon, was the hurdles, and he was, a self-professed hurdle coach at the time. We were helping each other, and he was teaching a class. It was track and field fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think it was fundamentals. Not then there was later you take track and field theory, the more coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, he goes, "Law, I just need you to kind of come to the class and help out, especially with the field events." So I signed up for the class, and I may have been there most of the time, but I may not have. And the irony in this whole story, she's going to kill me. His wife, Cindy, at the time, well, not wife yet, but going to be wife soon at some point. She was in the class as well. And I remember she wasn't as good at the stuff as I was. And I only came when he needed help, and I got my A, just like everybody thinks. And I think she got a B, and she's still mad about this 50 some years later. That's a true story.
That's awesome.
That's a true story.
So, what an amazing track culture you're in with the coaches and the athletes and the GAs. What do you do after graduation?
Well, the irony is, when I went in, the whole education scheme, the country was short of teachers.
Hmm.
All teachers, physical education, health, math, science, everything, they were short. 5 years later, everybody else had the same idea. There was an excess of teachers, and
Mm.
the jobs were pretty doggone difficult to get at the point. And so I ended up, and I was still training. I wanted to train towards the 19. It was kind of a punch to the stomach with the boycott in 1980. A lot of people lost a lot of steam, and some of the people were jumping ship and going up to Canada to try to compete for Canada. That just wasn't my style. And I was continuing to train, and I was volunteering that first year out at Northern Iowa. That's really what started my coaching career.
Mm-hmm.
I got it. I had gotten a cross country position at the University Malcolm Price Laboratory School, which was connected to the university.
Mm.
So I was coaching cross country, uh, ninth grade. Oh no, it was eighth or ninth grade. I forget. Girls basketball and then track in the spring. But I
Mm-hmm.
was the head cross country coach, so that was my first real paid position while I was a volunteer at
Mm-hmm.
Northern Iowa. I don't know if you can do that today, but that's what
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing. And I was still training and helping kids up at Northern Iowa. And then I signed up to substitute teach.
Mm.
And I did that for 2 years, and things were going well. And an opportunity came up in Rochester, Minnesota, to be a coach up there at a much larger, bigger school.
How does back in this day, how do you find out about a position in Rochester?
Well, my college roommate, his name was Gary King, no relation to our head coach, Lynn King, was from Rochester, Minnesota. And he was up, maybe it was in the summertime or in the fall, because I ended up going at mid-year in December after a year and a half down in Iowa. He had everything's in the newspaper. 535 school district looking for a cross-country coach at Mayo High School, where
Right.
my wife was going to school. And then and Gary had gone to John Marshall High School,
Mm.
and he sees that. So the job kind of called for some certain expertise that maybe he didn't have. So he called me up and goes, "Hey, we should go take this head job and assistant job
Wow.
up at John Marshall." I came up, I interviewed, I met, I can't believe I can remember his name. Kerwin Engelhart was the athletic director. I went and told my guys that Malcolm Price, I had another opportunity. They said, no problem. And we really support, we appreciate having you, blah, blah, blah. And I went up to Rochester, Minnesota, coaching girls
Wow.
cross country at the Crosstown Rivals male, ninth grade girls basketball at John Marshall, and track and field at John Marshall. I did that for, well, 2 years plus. And that's when I started my painting business
Hmm.
and, make the ends meet. And I would substitute teach 3, 4 times a week in any, subject matter. Didn't matter. I just go do it.
Were you at this time, were you thinking of like, oh, next logical step, I'm coaching high school and middle school, things like that, is to go to coach college, or were you?
No, I just thinking about, you know, paying rent, training, working out.
Right.
Wasn't thinking about moving down. I wasn't ever thinking about really coming back to Northern Iowa.
Hmm.
And lo and behold, and then kind of what really turned me off was, a lot of people are I was getting better, but I wasn't getting that much better. Then I found out a number of people that I had, been a little bit better than in college are starting to explode, and they might doing everything the correct way.
Hmm.
So I said, I'm not doing that. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to have fun, play some flag football up here and do different sports and work out. And then lo and behold, Lynn King, my head coach, leaves the head coaching role and goes to, because Chris Bucky had come in as a graduate assistant, moved to an assistant coach. Lynn went into administration in the Unidome there, and Buck was moved up. First guy he called was me, and I was summer of '84. I was on my way down to Northern Iowa with a 1982 Firebird Trans Am with a
Nice.
little pull cart behind me
Nice.
with
That's awesome.
about not much. And
I
then I started.
can't imagine young Buck and young Law
Oh my God.
together.
We we helped each other through the
I was about
early
to
days.
say, I feel like you would feed off of each other.
We did. We shared an office. Our desks were face to face, and we did everything together. At that time, Chris Buck was married to his wife Cindy. My wife Jody, my current wife now Jody. She and I, had been dating for a while, and then they became best friends. And she still lived up in Rochester, Minnesota, and I was down in Northern Iowa. We did everything together. Buck and I would go out on a run and talk recruiting while we're running. At lunch, we talk recruiting, how we're going to build this program. And it just, like
You
peas and
guys
carrots.
grew up together, and like you guys
In the
became,
coaching world, we did.
you guys came kind of changed from Chris Bucknam and Bill Lawson to like, oh, this is where Coach Bucky and Coach Law
Yeah,
really
yeah,
developed here.
yeah, we did. And we learned a lot together. We made mistakes together, but we also fixed those mistakes and just always had an ability to really just kind of like telepathy, feed off of each other. We were once interviewed after we started having some real success by the local news station there, and we were asked, well, guys, now if you weren't doing track and field and coaching, what else would you be doing in this world? And we both paused, and I looked at Buck, kind of blank, and I go, we're not smart enough to do anything else. It's the only thing we know how to do. And Buck just kind of shook his head, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But we did it pretty well. We were pretty happy with what we ended up doing there.
When I first got into coaching track and field, I was pretty oblivious running track and field. Like I had no clue what was good and who was good, what schools and all that kind of stuff. When I first started getting into coaching, and the internet started to become a thing, like Northern Iowa was one of those schools, quote unquote, not big name school,
Right.
like in Iowa, it wasn't University of Iowa or Iowa State. But boy, always, at least it seemed this way. This is the outside looking in. Always had multiple kids at nationals, and not just, oh, the kid went and got 12th in the 800 or whatever, like national champions. How did you guys, maybe it was different back then. I don't know. Today and I think it's a little overblown sometimes, but we like to complain about it's a D1 or bust mentality. Everybody only wants to go to, you're in Florida now. So people only want to go to University of Florida, Miami, and Florida State, and doesn't even look at North Florida and Georgia State and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
That's not true because all those guys have full rosters too, by the way, all the other schools. But how did you guys, you're in Cedar Falls, you're in nowhere, Iowa. First of all, you're in Iowa.
Yeah.
middle of nowhere. You're in
Yeah.
Cedar Falls, middle of nowhere. You're University of Northern Iowa. How in the world did you guys build up a perennial power? I mean, you guys were really stinking good. How'd you guys do that?
Well, I would say this, like a lot of the hardworking coaches out there. So we're not the only one cornering the market on that.
Right.
But we always were complimented a lot of times by other coaches, the John McDonald's of the world, or where it's like, man, you guys are everywhere. They didn't know we were driving through the night to get to these meets. I mean, we once took, I don't know, just a few $1,000 guarantee, and Bucky said, we're going law no matter what. We drove from Cedar Falls, Iowa to Albuquerque, New Mexico in Vance, just so we could get that guarantee.
Dude.
And I'll never forget, we went down when Buck was having his second child, Kate, who Kate now coaches at Kansas State.
Yeah.
He couldn't go, so I took the team, and it was a good team, down to the University of Arkansas. Their track was actually under construction, and we went over to I think it was Springdale or Spring. One, it's where Bill Clinton went to high school. I
Mhm.
remember that. And so we had a track meet with University of Florida, Arkansas. Uh, it escapes me.
Sure.
University of Illinois, and we were winning that meet. We would, and I'll fight anybody today that argues differently. We couldn't do the steeplechase because we're at a high school, and we couldn't do the hammer throw. And I had two mooses that would have gone 1-2 in the hammer,
Wow.
and we would have won that track meet. However, I remember, we got a little guarantee from those guys. Dick Booth was there, and of course
Mhm.
John McDonald. John called me up into the booth upstairs, into the announcer's booth, and he said, "Coach, you guys got one heck of a track team." Because I had a 7.5, 7.4 and a half, 7.5 high jumper, a 7.3 guy. We're going against Ray Dokes, and we had, some really, really good athletes. And we had a good track meet, but we would do that everywhere. I think the number one way we developed it, Buck and I came up with a philosophy: we have to look good at the Drake relays.
Mm.
We put our energy into relay events like the 4x8, the 4x4, the shuttle
Interesting.
hurdle, because the longer you're on the track, the more they're saying your name. That's Northern Iowa. That's Baylor. That's this guy. That's Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa.
Interesting.
That's Northern Iowa. And they would announce those kids'
Right.
names at the Drake relays. And Buck and I would just be slapping high fives all the way. And I go, Buck, that's going to help our recruiting.
Yeah.
And he and I would say, family man, you're always a family man, working hard, but we were recruiting, and it wasn't like recruiting today. If you want to know what happened in another state, you're sending off to the state association to mail the results to you. And you got to do that way in advance. And we would go up to the office and make recruiting calls because you can't afford it on your own phones. You
Right.
do it, you don't have cell phones, you don't have any of that
Right.
stuff. And you're just cold calling, kid, going down
Yeah.
the list. And then if we got a good positive, we're in the car the next day or that weekend. It would not be unusual to drive through the night or get there, stay for dinner until 9 and not get back until 2 in the morning, get up, teach classes. Well, that's another thing. We were teaching classes and
Right.
coaching at Northern Iowa and just building it. And of course, the big send off is when we went from, the mid continent to the Missouri Valley. That's
Hmm.
when we took off. And Buck will tell you the same story. It all happened. We were having a team dinner over at our house, a cookout. We were playing like volleyball and croquet. And I said, Buck, we got to start thinking like we're in the Missouri Valley and recruiting that way. And he 100% agreed. And that's when we changed our whole recruiting mentality we would go after the kids that the Wisconsins, the Iowas, the Nebraskas, and we beat people on those guys. We got Joey Woody over Iowa, over Nebraska, over Wisconsin. All the different schools were offering him money, and we got Joey Woody.
So I'm glad you brought that up. First of all, I love the story about you have to write to the state associations to
Yeah,
send you. And I just that made me think of good friend John Dye and what he did with Dystat and how you go to athletic.net and TFers and all that stuff. It all
he's
started with a John Dye doing Maryland and Eastern and then the whole country of getting these lists of all these kids, man. So I just shout out to what John Dye did for our industry, our sport. Okay, I love that you brought up Joey Woody. So when you were talking about these recruits, and if it's different back then than it is today, recruiting, tell me, the let's call the top 20 of each event in America, 99% of them are going to go to Division One or Power Four. Were you getting kids like that high jumper you mentioned, a 7'4", 7'5" high jumper? Was that a kid who was a 6'10" out of high school that you developed to 7'4", 7'5", or was that a 7'2", 7'3" that you developed to a 7'5"? Were these kids, you had studs, were they're all developmental, no matter how
mhm.
a 10 flat kid's still developmental. They got to make them 990. But what level, like, were you coaching these kids up to such a high level, or were you getting some studs out of high school as well? Joey was a
Yeah.
stud. Yeah.
So we had to, and again, we're not trying to wear a badge of honor.
Right, right.
We had to outwork the, like, where maybe a University of I mean, and these are schools, I'm not saying they weren't doing it, but the bigger schools that we were always knocking heads with, Wisconsin, good
Yeah.
friend, Duddy Coleman. Now, of course,
Mm,
Mark Napier is here as our
right.
director, and he and I have more 101 stories. And all, the Nebraskas, the Illinois, the Iowas, the Iowa
Yeah.
States, we would Buck and I would go to that local track meet. We would watch that kid run.
Mhm.
We would, not saying they didn't, but we did it a lot
Mhm.
because we were at meets people weren't at, shake their hand, shake the grandparents' hand. We would wait for the cheer in the stands to see who's cheering the hardest. And that's how we would go, eventually when the meet was over to talk to that kid.
Interesting.
And so and of course, those early days, like the Joey Woody days, that was a day you could actually drive to the house with the scholarship in the hand,
Yeah, back in the day.
sign
Yeah.
and home.
Yeah.
And
The Bobby Bowden rules, what
we
I heard
taken,
that's called.
yeah, A, B, and C scholarship, depending on how deep we had to go. We had all three of them prepared.
No, I never thought about that.
Yeah,
I
but
always heard that called the Bobby Bowden rule because he would just it's like, how do you say no to Bobby Bowden in your house and he's got the scholarship
exactly.
paper?
Well, we were good. Buck and I were good together.
Yeah.
We were really, we were, like I said, peas and carrots together in recruiting. We could just feed off of each other. And I'll never forget, Joe, like, I'll go back to those high jumpers I met. Joey Woody had just come to visit. I can't remember where. And maybe it was Iowa State. And as we got there, he goes, "Hey, guys, just so you know, I'm really happy you're here." He had his grandparents there, his mom and his dad. And he goes, "I'm not signing anything today." We go, "Okay." That didn't stop us. 3 hours later, he goes, "Can I call my coach and at least have him here and have a couple of my friends come over? If I'm going to sign tonight, I want them here." So
No
oh yeah,
way.
and we did. And so it was just, we would go the extra mile to get these kids. We just would. And then you talk about those high jump boys. Like, for example, Tim Sukon was like a 6'9" guy out of high
Mhm,
school,
mhm.
right out of Cedar Rapids, Kennedy. Steve Doherty, and then Sukon went 7'5" for me. And then Steve Doherty, Cedar Rapids, Kennedy. He was like a 6'8.5" or 6'9" guy.
Yeah, okay.
And then
So these are developmental kids. I mean,
yeah,
in
yeah.
that sense, yeah.
Pete Berger was a 6'8" guy, and he ended up going 7'3.5". And the only kid we did get, Jason Bonus out of Wyoming, had jumped 7 foot one time coming off of basketball, but he was struggling during the outdoor, only going 6'6", 6'8". He ended up jumping 7'5".
And,
And he's the kid that actually transferred with me from when I left Northern Iowa and went to coach at the University of Oregon. He went
Mhm.
out there. So he has the school record at Northern Iowa and
Oh,
at
that's cool.
Oregon still.
That's cool. Uh, you guys didn't confine yourself to Iowa either. I'm here in
Oh, no.
Wyoming and
No.
yeah,
Yeah, that was a big trip for us. We didn't really have a recruiting budget. And
sure.
I said, "Buck, this kid's jumped high. We need this kid." And because, we'd had the Sukon, the Herbert, the Doherty, and the Santee. I had a guy that jumped 7 foot 1/2 inch, 7'2 1/4", 7'3 1/4", and 7'5" on the team. And then we had another guy jump 6'10", and always to this day I still yip at him for not making 7 foot because they would all been together. Five guys. And so I went out to see this bonus kid, and he was being recruited by a lot of people, but we just brought him on campus and do what we do and
Wow.
show him the love, and here they are, guys like him and Jake Paulai and
Mhm.
another Illinois kid, of course, Joey Woody. We just stayed the course with Joey, and he ended up being really the big catalyst, national champion.
What's the status of coaching education here? So you're talking about taking 6'8" kids to 7'5", things like that. What are you doing coaching education? And when I think of coaching education, I think of it as kind of formal and informal. Both are important. Formal being back then probably TAC level ones, things like that. That's more formal. Today we have USFC, CA, Altus, etc. Informal, just as valuable, is peer to peer. You're calling up somebody who's a good high jump coach or whatever event. You're like, hey, let me pick your brain. I'm struggling with this, or how do you handle this? What are you doing during this Northern Iowa time, coaching education wise?
I, I never took any. I never did one, two, or three.
Hmm.
I just figure I could do it and figure it out. And it was maybe, I mean, we would do things like go over to the East Gym and dunk for an hour. We would just dunk basketballs.
Hmm.
That transition of moving in and that quick switch from that
Right.
horizontal to vertical lift.
But you're
Uh,
not, there was no YouTube, so you're not going
no,
online and things like
I'm not
that.
looking at.
You're
I
reading a
just
book.
no.
You're studying biomechanics on your own now. I think you're just kind of trying things out.
There's a magazine, coaches material. I think it was called Track and Field Tech.
Track techniques, yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Track Techniques. Thank
Hmm.
you. I would read articles from
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
more about kind of a confirmation that we're doing right things or trying to do things right. But I just kind of, you eyeball things. It's like a cook in the kitchen. They just know how much salt to.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Now, we made mistakes too, trust me. We
Sometimes you
made
put too much salt. Yeah, you're right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
we
Yeah,
made mistakes
yeah,
and learn from those mistakes. I used to uh, make a joke. I had a couple like 6,500 decathletes, and then I had my guys are 73, 74, 75 guys.
yeah,
And I had those first guys work out in the morning. That workout didn't go the way I wanted. I adjusted
yeah. That's
for
funny.
the other group.
We had when I was at Mississippi State. Keith Powell was our jump coach, and he was a decathlete for LSU when Mario Satania was there. And it's funny, Keith would say, I was Mario's guinea pig. They would throw things at me,
Yeah.
see how it worked, and then they would figure out what to do with Mario. Real quick, I don't know if you can see this or not. You mentioned Track Techniques. That was my favorite magazine
I
growing.
loved it.
I
Yeah.
shouldn't say growing up, but when I got into coaching, and they recently they just had their last issue. It's going away,
Really?
but they put out this cool. I made it my
I see it.
background. This cool cover, so 66 years of track technique, and it's got, I mean, just amazing coach George Williams and Vins on there, and Cliff and stuff like that, uh, uh, Clyde Hart, etc. But I put it as my background for two reasons. One, my whole life as coaches, but also 66 years. 66 is my number. That was my. So I just love it. I hate that it's going away, but I just thought that's
Well,
pretty neat.
and I'd be honest with you, you would go to places like the Florida State relays, you'd go to the Alabama relays, Texas relays,
Hmm.
and you got guys like Dick Booth
Yeah.
and some of these other really great coaches. And I would be a liar if I say I didn't eavesdrop on what he was saying
Yeah.
too.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And to say, hey, that's we need to do that. And I also recall training myself as a decathlete. I I wish I could do some things different. I trained too hard. I
Mm.
didn't do the right lifts,
Yeah.
and kind of knowing that now has helped me be a little bit better at coaching. You talk about coaching
Yeah.
education. I do more of that now
Hmm.
than
Hmm.
I did then, just because of the availability of
Right.
it.
Right.
So those two hammer throwers I mentioned, Matt Casillas and Alan Walls. I don't know when the last time I saw them both at the same time, but I've seen them, a couple times in the last 20 years. I go, guys, I want to apologize.
Yeah.
And they go, what, coach, what for? I go, you guys should have been even better than you were.
Yeah.
That's my fault. And he goes,
That's
coach,
my sign.
yeah,
That's my
we'd love
sign of
to.
a coach who has developed or not developed. If every good coach that is, from year one to year 20 is like, oh, I got better because of coaching education, things like that. They all say, boy, I wish I could call back up those
Yeah.
first few kids and be like, I'm sorry. Like I had no
Yeah.
clue what I was doing
I
compared
had
to
a
today.
pole
That's
vaulter
a
in
good sign.
Northern Iowa, and he's like one of my really good friends. He was actually, I think he was a freshman on the team my 5th year senior. Actually, he came in the next year, but I knew him because he's a local kid. And he was like a 14 something vaulter out in high school. We went to 17 feet with him. And I was talking to him about, he's actually going to come down at Christmas and visit me.
Nice.
And I was talking about, I'm kind of looking, I can see the pole rack down there. We had a little flight night the last time our vaulter was Jackson Jerback was trying 18.4, I think it was, just missed it. And I was telling him all about the training and the technique, and we got like 150 poles, and he started laughing. We had 2 poles for him at Northern Iowa, and the talk I was talking about the training and the technique, he goes, and he's just laughing the whole time. He goes, "What?" He goes, "We never talked about any of this stuff when you were coaching me." I said, "Well, I know a little bit more now than I did then."
I love your cook analogy, and it made me think about when you talked about, you leaned on maybe you working too hard,
Oh,
overworking, not working hard, but overworking. That makes me think of when you're cooking, sugar's good, sweet's good, so I'll just keep adding sugar. Like we over rely on sugar to make
yeah.
things sweeter, and it becomes too sweet. I think initially a lot of times in coaching, it was like, well, I can work harder, so I'll try that, and you can work too hard, and injuries and fatigue, etc. Just was
Well, I
interesting.
would piggyback off of that, Mike, and for the young coaches out there, and maybe old dogs like me, if you've got a group of kids and only 1 or 2 aren't running good, but the rest are running good, training's right.
Mhm.
If a lot of kids, if you got say 7 kids in one event group and nobody's running good or where they should be or they're flat, you got to look in the mirror and say, hey, what am I doing here?
Yeah,
Whether it's the training, whether it's the motivation,
yeah,
how they're receiving it. Because here's the big difference. You asked earlier about the difference. Kids want to know that you care about them sometimes more than they care what you know now.
right,
They
right,
want to know that you care. Back in our day, we didn't care if the coach what we would just go.
right,
And whether the coach liked me or not, I didn't care. I just wanted to be good.
right.
And so that's kind of a big difference there. And it's kind of a bit of a puzzle because my dad taught me this a long time ago. You got to know your horse, and you can have four horses, and they can all win the Kentucky Derby, but they're all trained differently.
Yeah, differently,
Or
right.
you
Hmm.
or you
Hmm.
speak to that horse differently,
Yeah.
or you compliment that horse more than the other one, or you challenge the other horse more
Hmm.
in order
Hmm.
to win that Kentucky Derby.
Yeah,
Think of Secretariat and Seabiscuit, 2 different horses, but
right.
they were great.
Yeah. That's interesting. So, how many years at Northern Iowa, and why do this might be a dumb question. Why do we go to Oregon?
Well, this is that's the $100,000 question, and when I can't tell you, and Buck and I through the years we probably talk well at least once a week, sometimes 3 times. I think we talked 3 times of 3 nights in a row this week, and whether it's mostly it's about track, sometimes about politics, or just we're laughing so hard we can't catch our breath. We had so much fun together at Northern Iowa. We had fun building the program. We had fun working too hard. Our wives had fun together. Everything is great. I was happy
Yeah.
for Buck and I to be there working together, developing that program. We started to get good. And it gets a little bit tougher in that mid-major world of, budgets and traveling, and our aspirations grow. And I actually had some other opportunities before the Oregon opportunity. And I think really what really kind of promoted the Oregon goes back to Wisconsin. And Mark Napier was there, Ed Nuttycombe, and then Martin Smith was the distance coach there. And he had left Wisconsin in 98, went in, coached cross country there as the head cross country coach in the fall of 98. Bill Dillinger remained the head coach until the second semester. Then Martin became the director of the program
Mm.
at that point. Well, Martin had seen coming from Wisconsin to Northern Iowa and Northern Iowa going to Wisconsin, uh, Napier likes to refer to us as the Panthers, the Panthers and the Badgers, because we always said if we combined our teams, we could win the national championships. Because we had certain things they didn't have, and they had things we didn't have. Well, obviously Martin, very close to the Vesquire guy, he's watching how our teams are at Northern Iowa.
Right.
Well, he becomes the director, and he's got to hire a coach, a field event coach. And we were at Boise, Idaho, at the national championships on the blue track there. And I see Martin, and I saw him actually in the airport getting luggage, and he said more than he normally does. I came home from Oregon or from Boise, and I told my wife, I think I'm going to be offered a job at the University of Oregon.
Wow.
How do you think that? I said, I just feel that. Well, lo and behold, about 2 weeks later, Martin called after the national championships and asked if I'd be interested in the interview. Went out and did that, and I ended up actually initially saying to Martin, I don't think this is right for me. And then he called back. We talked again because it was that little bit scary, that move from Northern Iowa, the comfort of Northern Iowa, the fun to Buck. Buck was hanging his head. He goes, Law, come on, man. And then he said, you got to do it. It's a great opportunity. And I did. And so I went out there, and we weren't very good in the beginning. I think the year before Oregon had got like seventh or eighth place, maybe eighth or ninth place. I can't remember in the Pac-10. 2 years later, we won the Pac-10 championship.
Right.
So that was Pac-10 then, obviously.
Yeah.
I got a chance to meet a whole new line of coaches that I hadn't met before. And then as Martin exited, and he ended up going to the University of Oklahoma. A lot of talk. I would have loved to have taken the helm, but I knew they were going to come in with a distance guy, which is fine. And then Lanana came in, and then was there, and he's putting his staff together, and some opportunities came up. I actually took a visit back with Ed Nuttycombe of Wisconsin, and then my friend Steve Rainbow, who at one time for 2 years was the head coach at Kent State. Then he went from Kent State to Wichita, and he told Bob Heller, "You need to hire Bill Lawson. He's out of Oregon right now. He can help your program." Got a call. I didn't call them. They called me, and brought myself and my wife out and treated it like we came to the Taj Mahal, made a great offer and matched everything that I'd had out there. And I said, well, I'd like to go to the dance of the girl that wants to dance and the one you hope to dance with. And so I ended up at Kent State for those 17 years. And that's how I finished my career after, nearly 40 years in Division I before I came down here at IMG. Retired, came down here 6 days later. Napes talks me into taking over the cross country and middle distance program.
How do you go back to Oregon real quick? Because
Yeah.
I have a question and then I have a story. Actually, it probably is a question as well. My first question is, how do you, like, I understand the hustle that's needed for Northern Iowa. And honestly, in today's world, like, and back then as well, even Oregon is, whatever big name schools you want to say, Oregon, Texas, Florida, whatever, they also had to hustle. I mean, they're
Oh yeah.
up against each other. So but I understand, like, the Northern Iowa hustle. You have to just outwork everybody. How did you not settle at Oregon? Because it was a little easier at Oregon. What I mean by that is when you called a recruit from Oregon, they knew who Oregon was, and maybe they knew some tradition. When you called from Northern Iowa, you probably had to, at least outside of Iowa, had to describe, well, where Northern Iowa was, and look, we're really good, and blah 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 blah. How did you not lose that fire that I'm going to outwork everybody when you had it a little bit better at Hayward Field there?
I go back to my upbringing, going to that farm twice a day. Up early in the morning, doing it at nighttime. I never lost my work ethic. I figure there's people smarter out there and better coaches than me, so I need to outwork them. And that's what we did. We brought that. I think that was the difference. I brought him in. I hit the road running. I had miles on airlines. I'm going out to Boston. I'm going down to Florida. I'm driving all over. I just figured that was my job. I'm not teaching any classes anymore. And I wasn't at the end at Northern Iowa. We didn't teach for the last 8 or 9 years there either. And I said, plus there's a little bit of fear of failure. Like, hey, been getting done in Northern Iowa. I know that pond. This is a little bit more of an ocean.
Yeah.
And it was kind of nice that at that point, Oregon wasn't very good, not really good at that
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
They had won. They hadn't had any. I think we had beaten at Northern Iowa. We had beaten Oregon at the national championships a couple times during that tenure. And then quickly that hard work, and not just me. I mean, we were all working,
Hmm.
and we started quickly turning it around, getting some really good recruits, turning the kids around that were already on the team that maybe weren't as motivated as they needed to be.
Right.
And, bingo, bango, bongo, very soon we were starting to get really good. And then I think it's my third year or so, fourth year, we hired Steve High, who is a very, was a very, excuse me,
Sylvie.
Steve Sylvie. I'm thinking
Hmm.
of my old high school coach, Steve Sylvie, and Sylvie's a recruiting machine.
Hmm.
Putting the two of us together on the road. I mean, Steve was, like I said, he was a great recruiter, and together we could go talk the socks off of anybody and get them to
Right.
work. And he's that kind of mentality too. He was a worker,
Hmm.
and us working together without sounding too arrogant. If we wanted somebody, the two of us could go get him.
Right. I love that humility of like, hey, just because I'm at Oregon,
Oh,
I still gotta hustle here, guys. I gotta work. So I
I
love
was
that.
reading I was reading track and field technical journals more then
Yeah.
than I was in Northern Iowa. Just making
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Well, I love you brought up Steve Sylvie because that's where you and I's relationship starts. So
Correct.
I'm at Neosho County Community College,
I recall.
and we had nobody. We had three kids returning when I got the job, and so and I ended up over the summer getting it up to like 15, but I only had 15 kids to coach. So what did I do all year? I recruited my tail off, right? And I ended up signing a bunch of good kids. Uh, I still kind of think it's a little bit like your stories. I think the kids were maybe a little bit better now when I tell the story, but they were really solid. But I signed what I thought was the number one recruiting class in the nation, regardless of division. So I get a little bit of a ego, and the University of Oregon is hiring an assistant coach. And I'm like, you know what? I want to work for the University of Oregon. That's a pretty good school, right? It's TrackTown USA. So I do my best law impression and I hustle. If I met you, helped you, if I knew you some way or form, I had you. We were email was burgeoning. So I had you email or fax, smoke signal Martin Smith saying, hey, you need to interview Mike Cunningham. I mean, everybody. So I just inundated Martin Smith. I bet you I had when I was at Troy, and I'll tell you, and I know I've told you this before, where I messed up. Not that I was going to get the job, but where I thought I messed up the interview. Uh, I had the football coach from Troy email Martin Smith saying, yeah, he can work with football players and sprinters on track, all just everything, right? And so one day I'm in the office and this strange phone number comes across and I
Five,
pick it
four,
up,
one.
541. And it's is Mike Cunningham there? I'm like, yes, sir. This is Martin Smith from Oregon. And I mean, I'm like, this is what I wanted, but I still was like, oh my God, it's happening. And so Martin, first sentence out of Martin's mouth, he goes, you know what, Mike? I just feel like I have to interview you for the job. Like, do you know how many people have reached out? And I'm like, it worked. And so he gives me a phone interview, very gracious. And here's where I messed up. I let assumptions of Oregon versus reality of a Martin Smith. I go, hey, Martin, I know you've got to win with distance. So I know you're going to give me 0 to 1 scholarship for sprinters and hurdlers. I'll make it work with football. I don't know if we'll be able to go to nationals in the 4x1, but we'll score in the. And Martin, he's like, nah, bro, I want to win the 4x1, and I want to win I want to win it all, every event. He wanted full team. So then they go out and they hire some guy named Steve Sylvie, whatever. Well, he's won a few rings, and within a week, I get another 541 phone call, and it's Bill Lawson. I don't know who Bill is. Bill calls me up and says, hey, Mike, so I remember this. I mean, this is seared in my brain. You said, so Mike, you just had an interview for probably the most coveted assistance job in the NCAA. You're 25 years old. I just feel like I need to know who you are. And we have this conversation of my background and your background. We kind of did a mini podcast without recording it back then.
Right.
And I said near the end of that phone call, and I said, Bill, I was like, I have this school over and who didn't know the future MAC connection here. As I go over at Ball State, Sue Park said that if I didn't get the Oregon job, she would hire me there. Her assistant had just left to take over at Western Michigan, and I said, what do you think? And again, here's these words just seared in my brain. This changed my life, Law. You said, and life was a little bit different in 2001 versus it is in 26, but this was reality in 2001. You said, Mike, every year we will go into the JUCOs and get the best athletes. Very rarely do we go in and get the coaches. It wasn't very common back then for JUCO coaches to go to Division One. And you said, so very rarely do we go in and get the coaches. He goes, you said, if you want to coach Division One, you might want to get back underneath that rule book because you knew what the JUCO rule book. It was a couple pages.
Yeah.
You know what the Division One rule book is, and you said you might want to get back under Division One rule book and recruiting and kind of get back in that horse. And I said, all right, I appreciate that, Bill. And remember how you started. You said, I'll never tell you what to do. I'll just tell you this. And so I said, I appreciate that, Bill. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you calling. I didn't even hang up the phone. I literally hit the receiver, let it come back to the dial tone, called Sue Parks up and said, I'll be there Labor Day weekend. And then that went on to Mississippi State and then the rest of my career, all that kind of stuff. And I've never forgotten it. I've never have I forgotten it. When I got to Gill and, Fred Dixon's like, oh yeah, my good friends at the head coach at Kent State, Bill Lawson. I was like, what's his name? And he was like, Bill Lawson. I go, wait a minute. I know Bill, like Lawson changed my life. And so I got to share that story with Fred. And I'm telling you, Bill,
Great. Thank you.
your giving towards others, man. I mean, it's I have personal experience with it. It just amazed me, and it was just the right advice at the right time, and humbleness with it too. This is what stuck out to me. You said, "I will never tell you what to do, Mike. But if you want to do this, you might want to X, Y, and Z." And like I said, it changed my life, man. I really
That's
appreciate
great. That's a good story. And I appreciate it.
it. And you talked about how you and Steve would go everywhere, and I'm certainly no Steve Sylvie, but me and you would have torn it up a little bit too, buddy. We had some
I
fun.
know.
Yeah,
I
okay.
know
All
you
right,
want.
just want to stick that out there.
We should make sure we have that out there. Right?
That's right, exactly. I just need that in the universe. Exactly. Remember, I said I'm no Steve Sylvie. I love Steve. Boy,
Yeah.
you talk about. I mean, I thought I was a good recruiter, and then I met Steve Sylvie. And I was like, oh man, you get after it, dog. I thought I got after it. Okay, you go to Kent State. So when we had TJ on last week, TJ talked about, he was 2 or 3, I think, is when he moved to Eugene, and he talked about growing up in, TrackTown USA and the all comers, and you had them. Now, hold on now here, Bill. He says you got to say this, tell if this is true or not. That when he and his sister, sister was a year or two older, if I remember,
2.5 years older.
When you would have them running these all-comers meets, you would have them running in bare feet. That feels borderline child abuse. What in the world were you thinking having your kids running
barefoot? We whenever they played in the backyard, no shoes, barefoot. We would have races in the neighborhood barefoot. I want to develop their natural foot strength, proprioceptor muscles, calf strength, explosive ability. And we would go to Hayward Field. It was called the diaper relays, where they had kids from 1 year old up to I think 13 was the last, and it was every Wednesday through the summer. Yeah. And our kids would go up there, and they were pretty good. TJ was pretty lickety split. I don't think he ever lost 100 or 200 or a long jump there.
Right.
And he would line up when he's about. Let's see, we moved to Kent when my daughter's he would have been 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, I think he said around 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then it wasn't 7. It was more like, because he went out there 2, 5, 6. Yeah, probably 8 or 9 years old. Mm-hmm. And I have to look it up, but when he was 8 or 9, he broke 30. He went 29 something as a little kid, and he'd run barefoot. And what you would do is you would get in heats. You could get in whatever heat you wanted. Again, there'd usually be about 5 heats of 8, all these little kids. And after the second or third week, now there's 2 more kids barefoot. Now there's about 5 more kids barefoot.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Then they're all trying to maneuver themselves, because if you win your heat, you get that blue ribbon. And they're trying to maneuver themselves so they don't have to run heat.
Oh, right.
And the old Hayward Field had the Pepsi sign right there before the Bowerman building. And I always told my kids, I said, when you see that Pepsi time, it's time to turn on the heat. And that's what they would do. and both him and his sister really had a lot of success. And TJ won, I think, every long jump, every 100 and 200 that he did. And he broke 30. He was like 29.3 or 29.5
He was
in the 200 at age 8.
he was so funny. He was talking about at some age, instead of just a blue participation ribbon, they
Oh yeah,
started giving out,
this is
you know,
true.
and so because sister was a little bit older, he goes, there was one meet that the story he was telling was where she won and she got the red or whatever and he still got a blue one. And he was so mad. He's like, wait, I won a red ribbon.
No,
The
he thought the
competitiveness
red
of
was
him is
better than
very
the
early.
blue. He had this little box. He probably had 50 or 60 what I would call bluish purple. They
Mhm.
were called It didn't matter if you won
Right,
or
right, 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 right.
you got a ribbon.
That cheesed
Okay.
him off,
He
man.
won every time. And then when his sister was like 10, they started giving pure blue, red,
Right, right, right.
white, green, and yellow
Yeah.
for 5. And that's when he first realized he went upstairs and he pitched.
That's like he was
All those
mad.
purple. He was mad because he goes, so Dad, you're telling me everybody got the same ribbon? I mean, he was livid. He wanted his sister second place. It was in the 400. She got second, and he wanted that ribbon.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So, how did you? I want to hear your side of the story. As TJ talked to us about going to high school, so now he's in Kent, Ohio, and he's going to high school, and he was playing other sports and doing well. And he laments about being 6'9". He's like, man, if I'd have maybe not been 6'9", maybe my hips don't hurt all the time, and those kind of
Yeah.
things. But he has a meet where an indoor meet, I think it was maybe junior year, where he does really well, long jumps really well, vaults decently, hurdles, and he goes, that's when it changed. Like, oh, more colleges started showing interest in track and field and stuff like that. So you've got a kid in high school who's recruitable, and again, air quotes, big school recruitable. How do you're a very successful coach, you're a former Oregon coach, you're a former Northern Iowa coach, you're doing really well at Kent. How did you handle being dad Bill versus Coach Lawson when your son is on the track doing things with the high school coaches? How did you did you insert yourself a lot? Did you hands off and let them do their thing? How did you handle that as dad and slash coach?
I would say it's probably about a 50-50 on that. TJ and I have a relationship. The first time I took him golfing, he was about 5 years old.
Mm.
And we have every scorecard that we've ever golfed with labeled when we scored what the score was. And uh,
Wow.
and probably 500 rounds at least, if not more. Every time we go, he writes down what it's Father's Day, it's this day, first day of this day. And ironically, we just had he and I, and it's okay to say now because his wife knows it. We took his 14-month-old daughter, my granddaughter, strapped her in the golf cart between us, and we played 9 holes. And so that was the first time that my granddaughter, Scotty Joe, was with us playing
Wow.
9 holes of golf. So we've had a great relationship that way. We've had our arguments, of course, along the way. I think from that high school question, it was always with both my kids, my daughter too, is I would try to say, I cheered, vigorously for the kids.
Hmm.
I'm loud when I do that stuff, but I was never trying to tell the coaches what to do.
Yeah.
But if they ask me afterwards, what do you think? I'm not going to yell at the basketball coach or the football coach or his jump coach. Mike, you're doing it all wrong.
Hmm.
Oh, you can't do this. Did I work with him? Absolutely, I did. But did I do it when he's being coached by other coaches? I try to keep that down as low as I could.
Yeah.
But when the kids believe in you and believe in it, their eyes shift to you. You
Hmm.
just got to give them a head nod. And Mike Drozen was his high jump. He loved Droz. And Droz was a high jumper himself. And he was so happy and proud to coach TJ. And I let him actually, when TJ broke the school record, I was on another trip. It was him and Coach Droz. I think he jumped like 6'9.5" on that day.
Yeah.
And,
I,
and
I didn't ask TJ about that, but that makes me think about how much did you, because you're both in the same sport. He's competing on Saturday for his high school, and you're competing in Indiana University
Yeah.
on that. So, did you get to see much of his meets? I didn't
I
think
saw a
about
lot of
that.
the Tuesday meets,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
because you know in high school you do a Tuesday
Hmm.
dual meet
Hmm.
or a
Hmm.
tri meet,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then you have on the weekend. But if I wasn't traveling, I mean, you know, if we had a home meet,
Mm.
or maybe we had a meet at Akron or
Oh,
somewhere
true. That's true. Yeah,
close
yeah, yeah,
by,
yeah.
you know, I could get back. I can remember I was setting with, I was at the Drake Relays setting with, oh my gosh, can't think of his name right now. Another great decathlete. And I was telling him about TJ and, I just kept getting messages from my wife. He goes, he opened up with 7 meters 03. He just went 7 meters 18. He just went 7:27. You know, I'm getting these messages and I'm great. And he goes, high jump was okay. He cleared 2 meters. He's mad or something like that. But you know, you're still getting the information.
Yeah, yeah.
And occasionally I would get a video of, you know, one of these jumps or something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I think we just had, I'd like to think he has tremendous respect for what I've done and what
Hmm.
I did.
That's clear. Yeah.
And obviously, you know, I coached him in college. And I think, not that I post on Instagram, I maybe got like 10 posts in my life. I think there's a picture of me drinking a cup of Starbucks at the conference championship. And he just come down and taken a long jump in the decathlon, excuse me, heptathlon indoors.
Hmm.
And it looks like we're discussing how to return a rocket ship back from the moon. But I guarantee you it wasn't that complicated. But that's the look that it looks on our face.
So not that the cat's out of the bag because everybody listened to last week's episode. TJ does go to Kent, but and I appreciate you describing your father-son relationship as a coach and athlete because luckily I think luckily for our local high school track coaches, my kids are not probably not going to end up doing track because I don't know yet. I don't know if I could be that dad who I coached at a fairly high level, Bill. That I can
Yeah.
just sit in the stands as long as everything's safe. Like, all right, they're the coaches. Do their thing. I
No.
don't know. I hope so, but again, I think probably better off they're going to go do their own different sports and events. But okay, that's all one good thing. That's all well and good. But now he's a really good athlete senior year. He's got a lot of schools looking at him. How do you handle? I mean, there's kind of a couple things going on. One is how do you handle not going? Like, what do you mean you're going to Kent? Like, why would you even talk to another school? Come on, it's my time to coach you. But also because I know you did allow him to pursue
Yeah.
to look at it. How do you? Because you know so many coaches, so like, oh, this guy or gal would be a good fit for my son. This one wouldn't. How do you handle? How do you navigate that scenario, the recruiting side?
I can honestly say 100% guaranteed I never told TJ where to go to school. Not
Not
once.
even like, hey, you probably don't want to look.
No, no.
Wow.
I made sure. So his first recruiting visit was to my alma mater. We went to Northern Iowa.
Hmm.
And we went together. It wasn't even an official visit because we were on family vacation, but obviously they're going to talk to him.
Sure.
He, you know, he wanted to see where dad was at and, you know, my Hall of Fame picture, all that kind of stuff. And just see the track. And of course, you know, we finally, you know, all those championships we were winning at Northern Iowa, we didn't have an outdoor track.
Oh.
We lost our outdoor track and we had the dome. And we would train at that local high school track when
Hmm.
they weren't there, of course, because she couldn't be at the same time where I first had my first coaching job. And so he got to see that, and obviously they would have wanted him. And then with Buck moving down to Arkansas, Travis Geffert, the decathlon
Hmm.
coach who I coached, recruited and coached
Oh,
at
that's right.
Northern Iowa. Geffy's down there, so of course they bring him down for a visit down there.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of other schools in between. And now I guess I was kind of filtering, like somebody would message him or call him or
Hmm.
email, and I just knew they didn't have a decathlon. They had coaches.
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe they did it by committee, and I didn't believe in that
Right.
system. Not that it's a bad system. There's
Right.
people doing that that are doing great. And then Indiana came into the picture.
Yeah, he mentioned that. Yeah.
I like those guys over
Hmm.
there. I like
Hmm.
Coach Wiseman.
Hmm.
He went on that visit by him. He went to, oh, that's the other thing. I didn't go to any visits. No, our parents, we stayed out of it. We
Hmm.
let them. I didn't want to influence anything.
Hmm.
Okay, because obviously I would have loved it if he came to camp with me. If I'd been at Oregon, that would have been a no-brainer. He'd come to Oregon. And, if I would have taken the job at Purdue when that was offered, or if I went to Wisconsin, wherever it would have been,
Hmm.
I wasn't going to tell him to go where dad went. So that's why
Hmm.
he absolutely loved those guys at Indiana.
Hmm.
And he loved Indiana.
Hmm.
And I didn't know until he had those hats sitting in front of him, till he put on the Kent State hat, that he's for sure coming to Kent State.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I
Oh,
didn't.
he didn't. We didn't talk about that
Well,
aspect.
he thought
Wow.
I knew,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I was almost, and we still talk about it with the Indiana guys.
Yeah.
They came to watch him play basketball. They came to watch him in track, and they wanted him, and he loved Indiana. I said, honey, I said to my wife, and I think he's going to go to Indiana, and those guys will do a great job.
Yeah.
It was a good program. They got good jumps. They got good multis. It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
loved the
Great.
camp.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Great
loved it.
campus. Jake's a
Loved
good
the
dude.
school.
Yeah.
I think he's going to Indiana.
Yeah.
And I think maybe right as we're going to, and I had to get a kind of a loophole in the rules for me as the coach at Kent State to be at the signing, how you couldn't be at the signing of a kid. But
Mm.
I was
Oh,
able to be at the
right.
signing because it's your own kid coming to,
Yeah.
and he probably maybe hours before, maybe the night before, he said that's what I'm going to do. But I wasn't 100% sure that he was going to come to Kent State until the very, very, very end.
So how do you recruit your own kid? Meaning,
I didn't. I
like,
didn't. I never one time. He'd just come up to Kent State. He would come up and see what we're doing. He would see the energy in that field house during a conference championship was insane.
insane. Yeah.
It was insane. He loved that. And he jumped on that Gill raised runway. Gill pulled off the same the surfaces and everything.
Right.
Um, we had, as you know, Kent State, we were on 100% Gill
Yeah.
there.
We loved it. Yes.
And we're about ready to plug, tonight, we're gonna have the throws, no,
That's right.
tomorrow night, the
That's right.
flash,
Yeah. That's right.
the launch party,
The launch
where
party.
that brand new facility is gonna be used 100%
That's
Gill.
right. That's right. Yeah. I appreciate
So
that. We're
thank you
very
for
grateful.
that partnership, by
Oh,
the way.
thank you. Thank you.
And
Absolutely.
so, I never once said, come to Kent State, go to Arkansas. But Bucky's my best friend. They love Buck. He goes,
Right.
uh, tell TJ, calls him Teach. Tell Teach he could just live at my house. Of course, he wasn't really going to do that.
Right. 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 Yeah. But
But
it's family. Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Right. Right.
they
Right.
were like family.
Right.
They were
Right.
like family. Buck and Cindy
Yeah.
and Eric and Kate and then of course Doug Case, another Northern
Mm,
Iowa guy, is down there now. The head
that's
coach,
right. Yeah.
and Travis Gefford is there, and of course
Yeah.
Bucky. And I love the guys at Indiana.
Yeah.
And then I knew right away he wasn't going to go to my alma mater, and he was, nothing against those guys. He was a little bit probably better than what that was going to offer from a conference and a
Hmm.
competition.
Hmm.
And so he said, Dad, I want to be with you. And
Hmm.
there we are.
I can't imagine. He had a lot of great opportunities there, and Gephardt, come on, what an amazing guy. And Jake's kind of like low key doing a great job. I mean,
Oh, he liked Jay.
Jake's name
He
doesn't get put
liked
out a
all
lot, but
those
Jake's done
guys.
a great job there in all the events that he works with. But I can't imagine just the relationship you two have that he doesn't work with you in college. It just would be an alternate universe that I can't even fathom. All right, let's move forward a little bit because we talked a little bit during college with TJ, so we know a little bit about that relationship and it continued the positivity side that you showed during high school and in college. And he goes on and does an amazing job there at Kent as a decathlete. You spend how many years at Kent, and how do you know when it's time to retire? I went through this with Fred. This is, I don't think we think about this a lot because we think retirement's never coming. How do you actually decide I'm going to retire?
It's kind of like we're going to do, say, 5 to 6 1K repeats for our milers.
Okay.
5 to 6. You just ripped 5 1Ks. Felt great. Do we do the sixth one and
Mm.
maybe tank a little bit?
Yeah, seriously.
Or do we finish with some fast 200s
Right.
instead of doing a K to feel like $1 million after that workout? I felt like things were going, oh my gosh, we had a great recruiting class. I just recruited a kid. to replace TJ. His name was Aiden Bates, and he's done really well. He scored like 5,700 and 7,000 plus, and he was the guy I was going to coach to break TJ's school records. Get a guy to go over 8,000 points. The cupboard was not bare. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
we would have continued to win, I think, for multiple years to come. I think we got to the point, TJ wanted to continue his training for a while. He did have some, you know, setbacks with, he's 6'8" plus, hip labrum, shoulder labor. I think at the point he was the tallest decathlete in the world, and it was a
Yeah.
lot of wear and tear on his body, especially as explosive as he was. He decided we were looking for a place to train other than Kent State because of the weather.
Right.
What had really had happened was when we were at the Olympic trials, he hears this come over, when I took him out to the trials for the decathlon, he hears his name and competing from IMG Academy, Jalen Slay, high schooler, TJ, he said, more than got done. And he looked up IMG Academy and goes, Dad, I think, because we'd already been down to the Anson complex there over in Fort
Oh.
Lauderdale, having start training there, and I coaching via, video coaching and
Right.
stuff like that. He could have a real chance outside of Ohio to get training full year.
Yeah. Well,
And so we took a look at IMG, and this was in 21, I think, 21, right after,
yeah.
the Olympic trials were a year late.
Right.
And come to find out, Mark Napes is the director of track and field down here. So I call up Napes. I said, Napes, want to send TJ down to IMG Academy. Can we sneak him in to get some training? Well, he starts training down here and had no money. He and his fiance at that time, girlfriend slash fiance. He's door dashing, just trying to make ends meet.
Right.
And living in an apartment, and it's got tougher and tougher and tougher. Well, my wife grew up vacationing with her family in this area in Florida when she was a little girl. She's
Oh.
always wanted to live in this area all her life. TJ gets down here. She comes down to visit. They go look at houses together. Next thing you know, I'm buying a house. I'm still at Kent State. I'm buying a house that I had not seen. They went and found the house.
Wow.
I paid for it, but they bought it, and literally, I was kind of up in on a personal note. I went through a bout with cancer, and gotten through that unscathed now for 5 years. And it was kind of a time like, what? Family's down there. My daughter had moved down to Fort Lauderdale. She at that time was at Nova Southeastern.
Right.
And she was working in the athletic department there. Her husband was in the airline business as a captain, flying airplanes, and she's down here. TJ's down here training. My wife wants to move down here. She says, "Okay, I'll put in my papers." And well, what will you do? He said, "I don't know. I'll come down and work on a golf course or do some private coaching or bug you at home all day long." And you kind of already know this story. So we buy the house. I go, I retire. They give me one hell of a retirement party and a
Awesome.
great send off, and the appreciation from Kent State to this day is much appreciated. Got down here 6 days later, I get a phone call from Mark Napier. Law, I need somebody to fix my middle distance program. And this is the honest God truth. And everybody's going to oh my God, they're telling the story again. I didn't ask what I was going to coach. I didn't ask how much money I was going to get. I should have. All I asked, do you have medical insurance?
I was going to say, Nate told me you gave you medical insurance, right?
I said, I'm in. And lo and behold, this is my 4th year, and we've taken that program and from really literally nothing in the middle distance to a powerhouse, nationally at this high school boarding level.
Yeah, I was going to call it 4x8U, but I have to pinch myself and remind myself it's not U, it's high school.
Yeah,
I was quite amazed at the tour that you gave me. It's unbelievable.
This place is amazing. It's the number one athletic boarding school in the world, and the facilities are phenomenal. And as I'm looking out here at this beautiful new track with the Rakuten G13 surface and the Gill complex, it's about to open tomorrow night. The throwing complex. A $3 million plus throwing complex, and then I'm seeing them build a new track and field, lacrosse, softball building. They're building
That's
a,
right.
I don't know how many $1 million, $50 million new swimming complex off to my right side.
Hmm.
They're expanding campuses, soccer fields, it's new dorms, a new
Hmm.
basketball, volleyball play. I mean, excuse me, volleyball arena. It's just simply amazing.
How do you now? It may be different because of you're at IMGA and you've got some amazing athletes, but has there been a I don't know if letdown is the right word. You've worked with some really high caliber athletes, and now you're working with high schoolers. So there is a little, even as good as those high schoolers are, they're a step down from what you had at Oregon and an eight. You don't have an 8,000 point decathlete on your team
No,
now.
no.
How have you? I don't know if it's recalibrated or what's like. How do you get still excited to coach a high schooler versus some of the amazing college kids you've had?
Same way when I was at Northern Iowa, when I was at Oregon, when I was at Kent State, even not your top end kid, you get a kid coming in jumping 13.6 in the pole vault, and he jumps 17 feet when he's done. That's just as rewarding as the Tommy Skippers of the world that you
Yeah.
bring in. There was an 18 footer out of high school and jumps 19 feet. And
Right.
I love Tommy to death.
Hmm.
And I know he's going, oh, by the way, I'll plug him. He's going into the Hall of Fame, I believe, out at Oregon as well.
Nice. Good for
Yeah,
him.
I saw a message on that. And I still get excited about maybe a young lady we bring in at 221 and she eventually goes under 210 and a
Hmm.
half. But we do have high end kids. I mean, we got a
Hmm.
puller on this team right now that's jumped over 18 feet.
Hmm. Hmm.
We got, you talked about decathlon. We may not have an 8,000 guy, but we got girls winning the heptathlon national championships, boys winning the indoor pentathlon,
Right.
indoor national championships in the decathlon. I think we had this year indoors, we had 38 high school All-Americans and 11 national champions at the
Wow.
meet. That's a high school 100-year career in 1 year.
Right,
Uh,
absolutely. Right. Yeah, yeah.
I,
I wasn't because I know some of those kids are listening, and because I met you when I was down there. That was not a slam at the
no, I
kids.
know,
It
I
was
know.
just like it is. These are still 18-year-old and under kids versus, and obviously they're going to go on to be developed, and they're going to be
Here's
8,000
the
point decathletes and more. Yeah.
Yeah, here's our fun is on the other end, I'm relying on the coaches at an IMG or local high school or club or somebody I know to help filter the talent to the collegiate level. I'm now on the ground floor, knowing if I know a certain girl or guy where they would be successful at helping working with that's one of my main jobs
Right.
is helping these kids get off to the right colleges.
Right.
So I'm kind of doing it on the other, and that's one of the big things
Yeah. That's
is
interesting.
we help you get to the school
Hmm.
not only of your choice, but the right school of your choice.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's very rewarding. And I got to be kidding. We had a track meet last night. I know we had some young kids PRing in the pole vault on the ladies' side at 9 foot, and that's just as much fun to watch as somebody PRing at 18.3. Even
That's
though
good.
it's a different height and athletic level, it's
Yeah.
still smile on their face,
Yeah.
parents in the stand pointing at you after the kid drops 7 second PR in the mile and they point at you because they know you've been a big part of it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
glad you have that mentality and attitude. Not all of us are going to have that, and that's
yeah,
okay. That's okay too. But I mean, that really points to your like, man, you just love to coach, man. I don't care
I
if it's
do.
a 6 minute miler or a 4 minute miler. Just let me coach and help them to get better. That's what you're a
Listen,
coach's coach, my man.
the day I don't want to get up and come to work is the day I won't do it anymore. But
Yeah,
I was excited to get in here today because I know we're going to be opening the new throws field. I knew you and I were going to have a podcast. I knew that a couple of our decathletes were doing a 1,500 workout. I enjoy coming to work.
that's awesome, man. I love that. So, speaking of those good kids you have there, and we've seen some of the social media posts from Runner Space and stuff. So, we got this little meet coming in, the inaugural Under Armour high school. Yeah, just a tiny little meet here, the inaugural high school championships from Under Armour. I said this in the episode with TJ, and I just want to say it again. Like, kudos to Under Armour. This is investment into our sport, and we need as much of that as we can possibly get. So, I'm
Absolutely.
proud of Under Armour for stepping up and doing this. And we talked we won't rehash this. We talked with TJ about the whole, is it too early and all those kind of things. And, TJ brought up some great points. If you didn't listen to TJ Lawson's podcast, go back. That was last week. It's you'll learn more about the that side of the Under Armour championships. What I'm curious about for you, Bill, is so what in the heck are you going to be doing during the Under Armour? Are you shagging discuses? Or you just get to coach, or what are you going to be doing?
Well, I'm gonna come out and heckle our MC at the at the throw field. If you people didn't know, Big Mike here is gonna be our MC during the throwing portion of the Under Armour National meet, and I'm gonna go out and heckle him as much as I
Please
can.
do. I'll cut off the mic very
We
quickly.
are not going to be involved in the running of, I mean, we're obviously going to set everything up. We just had a staff meeting about, we're not going to give special treatment to the IMG coaches. We can't be on the field just like any other coach.
Yeah, okay,
We're going
good.
to be coaching. My job and my role is not only do I have a particular area that I work with, but I'm trying to be available for all my assistant coaches, coach the coaches, if you will,
Hmm.
and be supportive of each event group. But we're just going to be out here coaching our kids.
Good.
I can't even tell you what the numbers. I mean, 70 or 80 officials plus I don't know how many volunteers.
Hmm.
And now we're going to try to. I think this meet will grow. This first one's going to have some growing pains.
Hmm.
And I will say about the Under Armour meet, it's lit on the high end talent wise.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for the numbers to come in.
Hmm.
And I think like all of us track coaches are lazy as all get out. We don't,
Always happens.
somebody says, well, gosh, we haven't filled it up yet. I go, hey, we registered for the pin relays like 2 hours before the deadline. What do you,
It's every meet director's crux.
I'm,
Yes.
I'm, I'm making sure my laptop's plugged in. I got my assistant coach, Hannah Galt. Hannah, are we in the meet or not? She goes, Law, I did it last night. Okay. But that's only like right before the deadline. And so I'm sure the numbers are going to pop up. But
Yeah.
I just got to plug him. I know he's my son. This guy has worked unbelievable with you guys, with
Mhm.
Gill. And I want to special thanks for all your support,
Oh,
Mike.
thank you. I
And
appreciate that.
Gill and Porter Athletics it's been amazing what
Thank you.
these guys have done. Everybody out there needs to know that about Gill. Their service is the number one reason why I go back to them. I'm just telling you right now, the high end, the talent. TJ has worked on the social media and he's worked with runner space. He's
Yeah.
worked with you guys. He's worked with Under. We're gonna have a pro section.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
going to get sandwiched in the high school girls 800, the boys 800. It's going to be
Hmm.
great, along with those two pro races. And everything is awesome. We got the wave lights, at pacing
Hmm.
for everything under the lights for those races. It's going to be something else. But TJ probably works, other than his regular job, 5, 6, 7 hours a day.
Yeah.
Sometimes, after his wife and child go to bed, he's
Yeah.
still late at night at home
I
trying to
wonder, I
make the
wonder,
thing roll.
I wonder where he got that work ethic from. I
Well,
wonder. Hmm.
I'm trying to give myself credit on the back end by saying how hard my son's working.
That makes sense. Makes sense. Now, Bill, you have been involved in high level track and field for decades now. You've seen, uh, I've seen some amazing things in track and field. I think about Ashton Eaton's world record, things like that in
Yeah.
person. You have seen 100 times more.
Well, I don't
So,
know about that, but I've
well,
seen them. Yeah.
you've seen a lot, my friend. When it comes to this Under Armour championships, is there an event or two that you're really looking? I mean, we've got some kids here, man. That hurdler's coming in. The
Oh my
vault
God.
is unbelievable. I mean,
So
there's
we went
some pretty
down.
good
Yeah,
stuff here. Number one
we went
shot
down to
putter. I
the.
mean, it's
Yeah,
amazing. Is there anything
we
you're
went.
really looking forward to, or is
We went down to the Texas relays and TJ went down there not necessarily to coach anybody, but just to promote Under Armour national championships, which obviously worked out. We're getting the 12.97 hurler, and I think the sprint races are going to be something. That 200, the girls 100 is
yeah,
lit. The 200, the four, I think two sub 40, 4x1s on the boys side, and the 100, the 200, are going to be incredible. I can't wait to see these big time throwers out at our new
yeah,
facility. And then also, I think the 800s along around those pro races. I mean, I think on the men's side we're 142 and the two 142s and the slowest entries like 144.9. And then on the girls'
it's
side,
crazy.
we're 157 flat to two flat. We're going to have an actual pacer. We're going to have pacers in the high school meet along with the pacing lights.
Oh
So,
wow,
and it's going to be people are going to know all about Under Armour Nationals.
Yeah.
This thing will grow and explode. But I think that throwing and the new field will be awesome. The 800 will be awesome. The sprint races and that hurdle race,
Yeah, yeah.
some of the things. And of course, my own kids. We got a young man that's going to get close to 4 minutes in the mile. You know, a young lady that should be going 4:30s in the mile here at G. And in our 800 crew, as you know, we're
Hmm.
multiple time national champions in the 4x8, Milrose champions in the
Yeah.
past 4x8. We got as you say, 4x8 U or 4x8 school. We got that going on. We're going to be every bit as good next year as well.
Yeah. Wow.
It's going to be kind of fun too.
That's
But yeah, I
amazing.
think those events are some standout events. Well, then I can't overlook the pole vault.
I know.
Two 18-foot guy pole vaults. I mean, you remember when 18 foot was high for the world.
But right.
And now you're gonna have two guys coming in, and then some other 17-foot guys, our own kids here. It's gonna be pretty special, I think.
That's awesome. Well, that's exciting. You know, again, we hashed all the whole thing with TJ last week about the different championships, and I just think it's awesome. I think giving kids an opportunity, to compete against higher competition, and for them to see, like, I'm
Mhm.
always worried about like that really fast kid in North Carolina who thinks, "Oh, I must be the fastest in the world," and it's like, bro, you might look at Texas and California, like because of motivation of like, oh, well, I guess I do have to work harder. So I just love kids being able to see and and TJ mentioned this too about track and field. This is another one of the amazing aspects of our sport. I'd love for that North Carolina kid to meet a Florida kid, and that Florida kid to meet a Boston kid, and
Yeah,
you know,
that's what we're trying to do.
yeah, I think that's great for their own growing up,
Well, and that's what IMG is about, bringing in the whole world. We have, kids from all over the
bringing
country,
in the whole world. I like that.
bringing in the whole world, because this is a global sport. And you're absolutely right. I mean, back that up, 50 years ago, I'm jumping at 15 feet and thinking I'm like, how can anybody be better than me when you got Earl Bell down there jumping 16, 6, 17 feet, or somebody triple jumping over 50 feet when you're thinking you're the dog.
Yeah,
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 we didn't know any different.
that's right. That's right.
And of course, kids today, now they, like you said, it's instantaneous
Yeah.
knowledge.
I think it's easier for us to know today that, hey, if I'm a 50-foot triple jumper, okay, I might be, 10th in the country. But I still think people are in their silos, and I think
To
they
some
still might
extent.
think, yeah, I think they might think I'm the best that there is. And it's like, well, you need to, again, not to humble them, but more of just like to open their eyes of what the sport is. And I love that, bringing the world. That's pretty
Well,
interesting.
that's what we're doing and bringing the country together. I
I
think,
love
we're
it.
going to have people. I know we got people from Colorado. We're still, there's only, I'm sure you talked about like 22 states
Yeah.
that don't have their state championships this weekend.
Yeah.
This is 2 weeks before
That,
Nike and
that
2 weeks before
surprised me
New
how many
Balance.
state meets were already done. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
really, because that was the number one complaint, if you will. I didn't know. I mean, I would not have guessed that many had been done at that point. So
Well,
that's
and the crazy thing is the majority of our entries right now, like the state meet for Florida is this weekend.
hmm,
Okay. So once the Florida State meets over, then we have Flyer, the high school, middle school state championships. I think that's when the Florida entries will start coming.
oh sure.
We don't have very many Florida entries.
Oh really?
Right. Not very many yet.
That'll
And,
change.
and I think, I mean, we have some, of course,
Hmm.
but a lot of us out of state, the Carolinas,
Yeah,
Alabama,
right.
some states that, like I
Yeah,
said,
but that'll change.
there's an awkward time between the end of the high school situation or state meets and,
Hmm.
and Nike and New Balance.
Right.
We thought this 2 weeks before those is a perfect time.
Yeah, that's what we were talking last week. Yeah, I think so.
And we didn't want to go head to head with New
Hmm.
Balance and
Yeah,
and Nike,
yeah.
especially as young as we are right now.
Right. And that doesn't add
I don't think it adds
opportunities.
any value. I
Yeah, that
think
doesn't
it
add
takes
opportunities. Yeah.
away.
Yeah. No, I think it's smart. I think what you guys are doing, Under Armour's doing, very, very smart. Bill, we're at the end of our time, my friend.
Okay.
Bill, there's many things, and you have certainly given me many things of value over not only my 2 decades here at Gill, but even before that, as I mentioned. But the most valuable thing you can ever give me is your time, my friend. And I'm just so
Oh, thank
grateful.
you.
This was a lot of fun. I mean, I know you and I could do 4 hours straight
Oh,
because
yeah.
there's a lot of stories that I know of we didn't get to tell. And I know that means there's at least double that I don't know that we didn't get to tell. But it was very interesting to me, your background and that humility and how what's interesting to me is, especially as a father of a freshman boy and a sixth grade girl, of how parenthood has transferred that to now TJ, getting to know TJ even better this past couple of years. That's amazing. I mean, coaching is one thing. There's no bigger fan of coaches than me. I think that's super important to be a coach, and specifically in track and field. But that's like your fourth most important title. Father, husband,
Hmm.
son. Those are way more important
Yeah.
titles. And so to see what you've done as a father, my friend, it's inspiring to me. Honestly, it's like, oh man, if my son can have to talk about me the way TJ talks about you, I will have been an ultra successful dad. So you've done an amazing job there. I know your wife has a big part of that as well.
Oh,
So
yeah.
shout out to her as well. But you guys have
That's
done a
why my
great job.
kids are smart.
Yeah,
That's what the 4.0
yeah,
students.
yeah. We all have our certain parts to play, my friend.
But one quick plug,
Yes, sir.
everybody thinks all the athleticism from my side, but no, my wife's dad was I want to say he was a 13-foot pole vaulter on a steel pole back in
Yeah.
1957.
Dude, that's amazing. I love it. Well, Bill, thank you again so much, man, for being here. We're excited. What we're doing there at IMGA and the business side here with
Yeah,
Gill.
thank you.
Very
Thank
excited for
you for your
that.
partnership.
Absolutely, and really excited. I'm humbled to be involved in this inaugural under. There's only one inaugural. There's only one first time, so
Exactly.
I'm pumped to do something fun and with the crowd and the athletes, giving them the spotlight that they deserve there in the throws area. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm just humbled that you would guys would have me involved. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Guys and gals, thank you for being here. This was a lot of fun. Again, if you're just joining us, this is your first time, go back last week and listen to TJ's as well, because that's the other side that's going with Bill's career. When TJ talks about being a couple years old in Iowa and then growing up in Eugene, and it's just neat to see that father son connection all the way through. We've had a couple other father sons off the top of my head. We had Alonzo Webb and his son
Oh,
at
yeah.
Pittsburgh. Yeah, we had them on as well, and so it's always interesting. Being a coach's kid is tough, and being a parent who's a coach is pretty tough. So it's always interesting to see that aspect of it. So thanks again for being here this week, guys. Check out the Under Armour Championships. By the time you're listening to this, it's probably a week or two. It's May 29th and 31 is when the Under Armour Championships are going on. So check them out on Runner Space and cheer on those kids. And let's make this sport viral, because we got some great kids, great coaches, and we need more great fans out there. So thanks for joining us this week. Join us next week, and we'll do it all over again. See you guys.